We're live.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kyle LeCount. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV, another double edition of VCTV at that. As we've talked about every day recently here on VCTV, this is an important time of the year. It is the rounding of the second half, sprint into the end of the year. It is the fundraising bonanza. However you want to refer to it, this is one of the most important times of the year for both investors and entrepreneurs. It's when a lot of things happen. It's when a lot of technology gets released, new products. We see new fundraisings comes out and great big announcements as well. So it is an important time for you as investors to start understanding what's new and happening and trending in different technologies, industries, and regions around the world. And for you as entrepreneurs to know who's investing, what they're investing in, and also who you should be connecting with. So that's what we do here on VCTV. We bring all those parties together, the best and the brightest, to give you all of that information in daily episodes. And with that, today we're going to be jumping into a very exciting topic. We're going to be talking about travel, transportation, and hospitality. What has been happening in these spaces or lack thereof? Where has technology at all levels being applied throughout these industries? To look at things, not just what's happened in the past year, but what's happening today, what's happening for the coming future. Where will technology play a role? How will these industries change? And how are they being reshaped in different regions around the world? That is what we're going to be diving into today, among a few other fun, exciting topics as well with our great panelists from around the world. And before we get started, a big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you like what you hear today, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up, reach out, provide us any feedback. We'd love to hear more from you. And if you'd like to be on a show like today as an investor, do reach out. We've got shows running every single day. We'd love to find the right one for you. And you can join a panel like today and our panelists to not only connect with them, but also share your thoughts and insights with our live audience and entrepreneurs. This is not just a show for investors, it's also a show for you. If you'd like the chance to pitch us investors here live along with our audience, do reach out. We'd like to find the right set of investors and topic for you to do so. And a big thank you to Elena, to Maria, and to the entire LA Token team for making VCTV possible every single day on your screen, your device, and anywhere in the world. And with that, I'm Kyle LeCount, your host. We are talking again about travel, transportation, hospitality. I'm coming from the stars. I might show up on the beach a little later today as we're traveling. Feel like we're in a whole new world here today, but let's go ahead and start introducing all of our guests. Without further ado, Jean, welcome to the show. I caught you in for a moment there. I apologize, but nonetheless, I know you're on the beach, so you might be having a margarita, but if you can, just take a quick second, a little intro, a little background.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for the intro. Well, I'm French in VC, deep tech VC for about 10 years. I advise and consultant for a couple of different funds. I also invest directly through my family office. And my family background is in airline, so I know the hospitality and the whole and that sector quite well through DNA wise, I guess. And yeah, the beach behind me is where I am right now. So that's why the hospitality, very hospitable place.
Well, you look like you're well traveled and relaxed, which is great. It's gonna be perfect for this. Yes. Perfect. It'd be great for the conversation.
COVID Manhattan to escape there, so that was quite nice.
Wow, no worries. And with that, Alex, welcome back to the show, my friend. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. I know this is an exciting topic for you, but a little intro, a little background.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, to the whole LA Token team as well. No, it's a super interesting topic, and you know, I spend a ton of time in the blockchain and the data space. And so this is a really interesting time to kind of rise up one of the specific verticals that we really do focus on, and think about it from sort of the deep tech angle, and how the pieces of the world have changed and really forced some of these new types of technology to be used in different combinations to create solutions that, you know, have allow us to still do what we need to do in this kind of crazy new world. And it's travel, transportation, hospitality. are really interesting as the crux point where the physical and the digital world combine a lot of the time. It's one of the most important price points. Kyle, you want to jump in?
I do. Hold that thought real quick. We're just coming around for introductions. I'm coming to you on those thoughts in just a moment. I don't mean to interrupt, but I know you got a ton to talk about, so I want to give you the right moment for that. So sure. With that being said, go ahead.
Yeah, I run a venture capital fund called Bicameral Ventures. We invest primarily in the blockchain and data space, very focused on changing underlying paradigms of data and creating the self-sovereign world that builds out from there to create new solutions that are better for individuals, for companies, and especially in this kind of crazy new world now. So as Kyle mentioned, I have tons to talk about in this space, but I'll leave it there for now.
So much that he might be able to write a book if we're lucky enough. But welcome back to the show, Alex. Neil, welcome to the show as well. It's a pleasure to have you. If you can, a little intro, a little background for the audience.
Sure. Well, yeah, thanks to the whole team for putting this together, VCTV and all you guys. So Neil Gupta, part of a founding team from the operating world of technology, which we scaled a company to about 5,000 people and sold and started investing in startups through another operating business and had a couple of funds as well in the process. So we have equity in about 300 startups, mostly in the US, but some in Europe and Middle East and Canada and UK. But yeah, we invest across sectors. I think this is an interesting space which is rebounding, and I'm looking forward to sharing a few stories on 4 of our portfolio companies in this space which have managed to turn around. But that's me. Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome. Julio, I want to come to you next, and then Telly, I'll come to you. So Julio, to you, a little intro, a little background. Welcome back to the show as well.
Hi, this is oh, it was me, right? You called on me.
It's you. Yeah, go ahead, Julio. Yep.
This is not the beach where I'm sitting in front of. I wish I were, but today is back to work day. So welcome everybody. Post Labor Day, as you said, Kyle, it's the time where the tire hits the proverbial road. Time to put some money to work. All of the money that has not been spent between March and today, I think needs to be spent between today and December 31st so that people can get results in their funds, people can get their bonuses. So there's a lot of money to allocate. We invest in the space of hospitality and travel. It's one of the 3 or 4 verticals that we invest. We are a combination advisory company and fund. In other words, we invest in the deals that we promote. And you know, we're based in New York City. We tend to specialize in the Western Hemisphere, Latin America specifically, but we look all over the place for interesting ideas. And now more than ever, we need interesting new ideas because the industry has been hit hard by the virus. All of them, hospitality, travel, whatever. So we're here in part because we not only do we like to share our views, but we also want to meet people and we want to hear from people who have new and interesting ideas so that we can put that money to work before year end.
Wonderful. And thank you so much. Again, a pleasure to have you and definitely ready to start talking about that. And then last but not least, another dear friend of mine who I'm very excited to share the stage with, virtual nonetheless. Telly, welcome to the show for the first time. A little intro, a little background.
Hi, thanks for having me back on the show. So unlike everyone else, yeah, my background, I'm actually in Nevis. So I'm in the Caribbean. So when it comes to travel and hospitality and all the changes, I think we're the most impacted. And I have like a firsthand view of what's like going on and also some of the trends we're seeing. So my background, I'm representing Beyond Capital Markets. I'm the co-founder for Beyond Capital Markets and also co-founder for Powerhouse Labs. Under Powerhouse Labs, we have an incubator with our portfolio of a number of fintech-related startups. And through that, Beyond Capital Markets was born. we're focused on, we've developed a framework for digital financial market infrastructure, which is missing more or less, especially in emerging economies. And out of that framework, we've actually developed and layered a protocol of services on top, which we're starting to roll out. And within that, within the Prohouse Labs portfolio, we also invest in startups that are solving some of these pain points. So well, my background is actually diverse. I came into this space first as an entrepreneur. I've been a seasoned management consultant for over 20 years, but I'm also a financial innovator. So back about 5 years ago, when we connected this vision on how do we redesign, this new financial market infrastructure, we actually did it in Nevis. Guess where? We were at Alexander Hamilton's estate, where we sat down and actually mapped out a new design for a digital financial architecture. So yeah, since then, we have a number of solutions that address a number of different things along the value chain, inclusive of institutional grade real estate around, of course, high-end hospitality.
Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone to the show, and definitely we've got a lot to talk about. Want to kick things off real quick here with our very first question, and that's, what is the current state of these three industries? I know Julio mentioned, and each of you touched on this at one point, that these three areas have been very affected over the last 12 months, but they've also seen quite a progression in terms of technology and opportunities over the last 12 months as well. Some of them have been long in the works of being redefined and what that may or may not look like going forward as well. So we'd love to come to each of you, get your thoughts on the current state of each of these and where technology may be playing a role. And we'll go from there. Alex, I saw you unmute first, so I'm going to let you go ahead.
Like Jeopardy.
We'll go around. Everyone's going to have a chance, so go ahead. Kick us off.
No, it's so it's a really interesting space, and if you'd asked me 6 months ago, then the answer would be very different than it would have been 2 months ago, and the answer is very different today than it would have been then as well. Just because, and I think everybody is settling in as the way that I kind of think about how enterprises have sort of adapted over the last 6 months is it's no longer necessarily a needle off the record moment of holy shit, everything has changed. It's sort of we just did a 6-month proof of concept for what our digital vision was going to be for 10 years from now. Now, okay, we're starting to get a little bit back to where we were going before. We're starting to have a little bit more normalcy, but nothing's ever going to go all the way back because people have been forced into these crazy changes that essentially force their digital roadmap a decade down the line. So, in the transportation and travel space, I think there's been some really interesting technology that's started to evolve, and I talked about it a little bit before of this mix and where we're connecting the physical and digital world. So we spend a lot of time in the self-sovereignty and data spaces, and I know that travel and transportation specifically is one of the most price discriminatory industries that exist out there. Every time you see a new price, every time you do anything digitally, everything that you want to book or everything you want to change changes in real time. So it's a super interesting industry for kind of real-time bidding, real-time advertising, and just this rapid updating. And so as we're in the digital world more and more, and almost exclusively now, through the venues like this, through us not actually going and traveling and meeting people, the amount of information that's out there about us and out there to build these travel profiles and to build prices and to build all of those things is getting larger and larger and larger. So, I mean, I think the real opportunity and a ton of the space that we're working in is in, rather than having all of your data go to third-party travel sites that are generally operating through Google or through sort of this the existing kind of digital backend that we work on today, this idea of travel sites or travel entities creating travel profiles and creating opportunities and creating offers based on your own self-sovereign data. So based on your version of putting your hand up and saying, hey, I'm looking for this, I'm looking to create this experience. Because travel is becoming less mandatory and becoming less scale, and needs to be much more tailored and customized, because a lot of the travel is, and this is sort of where I see the industry going, is going to be voluntary. It's going to be, okay, I want to do this, not I need to do this anymore. Because we've had, you know, a reasonable amount of success in running a travel-free world for the last 6 months. So it needs to be much more personalized. It needs to be much more tailored. And honestly, it needs to be sustainable at lower volume, because that's the way this that I feel like the travel world is going to go. So a lot of stuff to dig into there, but I'll leave it at that for now.
I think you're spot on. I mean, we've talked about this in the past, and not just one-on-one, but also on other panels here on VCTV about the power of data and how this is going to influence and impact so many things. And the idea of personalization, or that retailering, this is just one of many industries that are going to require it. Jean, I'm coming to you. Same question. You know, what is the current state that you're seeing in these three areas? Again, travel, transportation, hospitality.
Well, I have I think a different view on that. The whole angle will be probably, you know, I feel like we're gonna wake up in 6 months and we're gonna have done, like, I don't know, 1 billion Zoom meeting and Skype, and no deal, no fundraising, nothing will have closed, and people are gonna start traveling 10 times more than before. I know there is a big shift from the Google and the Amazon of the world to say we're gonna start working from home, and the whole world will start becoming, you know, at home workers. But I don't believe that's sustainable for 90% of the economy. Maybe a piece of it, like Google already, you know, leave their engineers at home when they want to. I mean, that was before COVID, and that will stay after COVID, and that's true for all the tech giants. But I'm talking everything else. I don't know how. We've been running a big fundraising for a large private equity last month, and just, you know, it was hard to get the Goldman bankers on phone or even on Skype or Zoom. And if it's hard to get a Goldman banker for fundraising on Zoom, can you imagine how hard it is to get a pension fund guy on Zoom? It's impossible. It takes 6 months. So it's just, I don't think that's going to be sustainable to stay like that. Most of the exec at most of those companies will ask people to come back to work at an office and travel to close deals. I think that's that whole scenario where we're going to manage to copycat the Google of the world in each economy. I don't believe in that. Yeah. Well, so reverse way of you, man.
No, look, it's totally fine. I mean, everyone has an opinion, and there's a lot of different pieces to unpack here, right? There's industries, there's individuals, there's location, there's a lot that has to that can be changed. And I think Alex makes one good point. You're making another, and Julio's unmuted, so he's either going to sit in between or he's going to take one side. Julio, continue.
In between. I agree with both. Jean is correct, but at some point they're going to have to travel again to meet those pension funds and Goldman. By the way, if Goldman doesn't return your call, you can always call us. We may be able to help in some way. And we do have some access to some of those pension funds. And so far, they're returning our Zoom calls. But I agree that there's been a pall cast on the industry. I think things are moving slowly. And this means there's going to be winners and losers at the end. Maybe not even winners, but there's going to be survivors, and there's going to be victims at the end. So for now, we're focusing on putting our resources where the survivors are placed. For example, airlines. We look very closely at Latin America. We look very closely at Mexico. Mexico has one airline called Viva, which is a low-cost airline, which is in fact right now increasing market share as travelers now need to either spend less money or travel in a more efficient manner. The low-cost airline, the typical model of Ryanair and Spirit, that type of model is actually their load factors are higher than the competitors, and the competitors are all going down. In terms of hospitality, you've all heard of the company called Oyo from India. There are various Oyo-like companies around the world. There's one in Latin America called Rotamundos. That kind of low cost, no frills type of travel experience to maybe new interesting locations where there maybe aren't many crowds, and where there is some sort of a curated experience around, where you can go and be safe. They're going to survive. I don't know if they're going to thrive right now, but they're definitely going to survive. They're not going to, fall by the wayside. In leisure, you have, situations of people trying to find, places to go. And there are certain locations around the world that can now cater to that, COVID-minded traveler. We're involved in some of those too. So let's try and survive for now. We can put some bets, make some bets into companies that we think are better positioned, and then of course wait for the recovery. Clearly, this is not sustainable. We're all hoping for the vaccine, and we're all hoping to go back to normal. We survived the 1918 pandemic. It lasted 2 or 3 years. Today, technology is better and information is better. So people, when a vaccine comes, when some treatment comes, people will hear about it. They will seek to adopt it. So the 1918 was, I think, 3 years of pain and 50 million dead. This is kind of like that. But we're going to probably have, less than 3 years of pain and certainly fewer than 50 million dead.
Well, and technology plays a very unique role as well. I mean, let's keep things looking forward here as well. And it's technology plays a very different role today than it did in 100 years ago, but also just even the past 12 months ago. Julio, you mentioned it, Jean, Alex as well, that technology has played a very redefining role in many industries. So when we were traveling, we might not needed to, right? That if efficient travel, as you called out, so that's something that we may now take very much more seriously than we once had before, right? When getting on a plane just to go somewhere, it's not necessarily needed when you can have a quick call like this and then be done and move on with your day. These are things that are changing. It's that mentality as well, that thinking process that we're starting to see impacted. And as Alex and Jean mentioned, the data aspect and how that's playing a role is really affecting these areas. And we're going to get into a little bit more of that here in just a second. But Neil, I want to make sure you get a chance. What are you seeing as the current state of these three industries?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably land in the middle as well here. From statistics I've seen, we've had about 10 pandemics over the last 200 years, most of them lasting about 1.5 years. And this looks like it should be, around the same time frame, 1.5 years or so to get out of this. But I think one thing it's done is woken us up to the technology that that has existed for many years. And, the whole world is leveraging that a whole lot more than they did before because we were forced to leverage it. We were usually relying on, face-to-face meetings pretty heavily, much more than probably we've been needing to. So I think that there's going to be a new world order in terms of work-life balance. I don't agree that it's all going to be in pandemic mode because people do need that human contact. They want to meet for coffee. They want to break bread. They want to look into each other's eyes, see the body language in terms of business meetings or, for that matter, social meetings. So I think that there's going to be a new world order or new normal, I would say, for work-life balance. And as somebody mentioned, I think you mentioned, Kyle, businesses are going to weigh, is this, trip, from New York to LA to meet a client or investor worth it? Or can we do it over Zoom or some other way? At the same time, the asset light business models in these spaces have been winning the day, as tech has in general, because of the fact that they are asset light. They can pivot their business models quickly. But on the other hand, I do think that airlines and hotels have a place in this world, and there definitely will be a little bit of reinvention around how their models work. But I think they have big moats. I mean, not everybody can start an airline. A lot of people can start, an Uber or whatever. But how are you going to copy United Airlines, right, with all their planes and their routes? So they may have to figure out their pricing or business models a little differently, but I think there's definitely a place for them. But yeah, I mean, from what we've seen in our portfolio, companies that we thought would just get crushed with this pandemic, we've just been very surprised that they've actually managed to pivot and are doing actually very well, some of them. There's no doubt some of them have probably gone under because they're in these spaces, but we've been really pleasantly surprised with some of them that have managed to make the most of it in the travel and hospitality space, and actually they're beating their previous numbers with their new business models, and I guess that's been the most surprising thing for us, honestly. And companies that have been in these spaces, which have gone under in our portfolio, went under before the pandemic. So imagine if they were around during the pandemic. They already went under. So it has a lot to do with, I think, the team and a lot of other factors beyond beyond the pandemic. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think you're bringing up a good point. I mean, some of these companies, I mean, look, the industry was very much affected, all three industries, and we haven't yet gotten deep into transportation, because transportation is unpacked much bigger than what we're talking about of airlines, right? I mean, you can get into transportation around last mile. We can talk about transportation, into the stars, as we have on previous episodes. Also, transportation amongst cities and the reemergence of local transportation. There's so much here, but Neil, you are bringing up a good point. Some companies were kind of on a path that were already struggling, and this just kind of unfortunately accelerated some of those unfortunate situations, or forced the hand for those companies to change and pivot. And we did see that in some areas as well. And Telly, I want to come to you next. What are you seeing at the current state of these industries from a technology and startup level?
Well, we're seeing, not necessarily in the region, but extra-regionally, we're finding those companies that, on the hospitality side, those companies that had already embraced digital heavily into a lot of their processes and systems were able to quickly pivot. You found that, the whole move towards service departments type / hotels actually took off, because those accommodations kind of make you feel at home, yet it gives you the services of a hotel. So we found those services were very high in demand during the pandemic. They kind of, and I think going forward, where more people are working remotely, those type of services are going to be high in demand as people start transforming their workspaces into, where they live as well. What we're also seeing is the ability to onboard digitally is really something that some properties that never had that ability are actually suffering now, because you're talking about physical distancing, where you don't necessarily have to meet that client in the beginning. So technologies, those startups who have been working on remote onboarding, key lock systems, those people that use blockchain and so on, you found they actually were they're actually more in demand, and they actually appeal to investors. So when you're looking at the real estate side of things, I think no longer can you look at real estate just for just the real asset. You have to look at the service model that's around it. So we're finding more and more that moving forward, one of the bigger trends is the whole move towards wellness. And people wanna be well. The pandemic also uncovered or flipped that switch to know we want to be around family. We value experiences. So I think on the upside, destinations as well as hospitality um, firms that could pivot to provide that well-rounded experience will survive in the long run. Also, uniquely, you're seeing an emergence and growth of those type of integrated boutique type experiences that involve things like agriculture. People want experiences with agriculture, being able to farm, to see what they grow. So if you have integrated systems with like greenhouse, we're seeing investments in that area with greenhouses or properties that connect with that type of agriculture, agro-based aquaponics, doing quite well. You're also finding there is now an increased demand for properties that also involve well, how do I put it now? Properties that are incorporating within their built designs wellness. There's a move towards investing in along the value chain, companies that actually provide technology solutions for wellness holistically. So the opportunity is great. In our space, what happened was, obviously, like Neil had mentioned, if you had companies that, like airlines, who were already having problems, they saw their sunset during the pandemic. I mean, they just couldn't survive it. It was either you pivot or just you die and you create something new. But it doesn't mean that the opportunities aren't there. You now have smaller, emerging, younger firms that are, coming out to launch new airlines and airline routes that are more efficient and more embraced. They're leaner and have a much more streamlined process. You also have that one unique sector that I see growing. There's a growing demand for, which I thought there wouldn't be. While you have the large cruise sector suffering, you do have that unique growth in yachts and super yachts, where people want to also they want to travel. They want to have that freedom to travel without being bounded. They have their own yachts, and they want to be able to visit destinations that allows them in. So you're getting, I think that industry is pretty, it was impacted to some extent, but it's kind of bouncing back right now. And any development around marinas and those type of things is something that investors are starting to look at, infrastructure type investments.
So that's the key word, infrastructure. Just to kind of quick come back.
Resilient infrastructure.
Yeah, and so infrastructure in general. So going back to transportation, travel and transportation are very, very vast in what they encompass. Infrastructure is very important. We've talked about this on previous episodes of VCTV. Infrastructure, while not always the most exciting thing to talk about, actually has huge impacts. And there is a ton of opportunity around this, whether it's around travel, whether it's around transportation, whether it's around these core pieces. So like Telly is mentioning, around marinas, for instance, around where also logistics centers exist, just something to be mindful of. We talked about that around the future of supply chain and logistics as well. There is a lot at the infrastructure level, which takes me to my next question. I want to switch gears and get to the technology. I want to go deeper in and hear from each of you, and specifically Alex and Jean. I want to come to you guys around the deep tech. We talk about deep tech, and just to clarify for those, when we talk about deep technology, and our panelists will go further on this than I will, but just to give you the heads up, we're talking about technologies like artificial intelligence. We're talking about blockchain. We're talking about machine learning. We're talking about data. We're talking about these infrastructural pieces that sit below the surface that power what we are seeing and what we use as both consumers and enterprise. So Alex and then Jean, for both of you, where does deep tech really play a role in these industries? And you feel free to pick one and go after it, but I really want to get to the core. I don't want to talk about the pandemic anymore. We're off that. Let's look at where technology, deep technology, is playing a role, and where is it going to play a role going forward? So Alex, let's start with you.
Sure. So I guess I'm going to answer that in a couple ways. And some of it is actually technologies that are allowing transportation systems and platforms to get back to what they were doing in a safe way. So I don't want to talk about the pandemic specifically, but I do want to talk about building in resiliency to our platforms. And so specifically a project that we're invested in, and there's actually two that are doing something somewhat similar. And it is back a little bit to the data side and to use the use of blockchain as well. Of creating this essentially this data vault that you own and control, and it used to be valuable for your commercial purposes and sort of the general stuff. Now it's the value of that type of technology and the value of essentially creating a data supply chain with access that's governed by smart contracts, that's transferable, that's valuable, where you can actually value individual pieces of data and transfer them in a commercial setting. The value of that's gone up exponentially because A, we're doing more stuff digitally, but B, our health data now needs to sort of live in something like that. And accessing a system and going through a transportation system, whether it's us as a consumer or whether it's a good going through a supply chain, the piece of that no longer is just, hey, I'm a wallet that is walking through a system. It's now, I'm a wallet that has a certain risk level that's attached to it that's walking through a system. And my characteristics of how I'm going through an Uber system, how I'm going through a municipal transportation system, or how if I'm a good going through a more supply chain based system, there's more sensitive, more important pieces of data that now need to be attached to me as a unit going through a system. So the technology of how that data is being aggregated, how that data is being secured, how that data is being referenced, how that data is being transferred, and then how it's being actually used by individual people or machines within that system is all super critical in my mind to unlocking and then also building in resiliency against future pandemics. As I think one of the ways we are now building systems is to be resilient, or hopefully we are learning that.
Well, it's a little clogged.
Oh, sorry.
Julio, sorry, you might have jumped off mute there, but Alex, you were saying building resilient systems because this is something that could continue to happen, and not just, again, the pandemic. Let's jump away from that and look towards the future, but this is resilient systems for anything. If anything we saw over the past 12 months, and just to summarize real quick, we saw a lot of cracks in many of the industries and systems, or lack thereof, that we may have not had. And now we're finding ways and seeing others where the digital lives that we're living and building really can be improved upon, right? Those systems can be in place, to your point. Am I correct?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we've been able to sort of bandage up our mediocre digital infrastructure by essentially just only ever showing people kind of the top 10% of what you experience and see in a digital world. And then when the digital world became our only world, and that's just continuing and it's never going to unintensify. The lack of back-end digital infrastructure and this barter system that we have of all of my data in exchange for what is now a commodified web service really started to crack. That's a great way to think about it. We have this big foundation that we don't understand as users or consumers. We have the technology to build the real versions of what we're sort of simulating with mediocre tech today. But we've never really had the impetus to really create those real versions of it. So when I talk about customization and tailoring and all of those experiences from a physical perspective, it really is about sort of creating new realities based on a well of data that I own and control. And that relies on a bunch of those deeper technologies of AI, blockchain, and IoT actually is a critical one as we go through this stuff as well.
Absolutely, and we'll come back to that as well. But John, to you, anything else to add around how deep technologies such as those that we've mentioned and Alex touched on as well are going to be playing a role in these industries?
Yeah, sure. I think Alex, you have a good point. I mean, AI and blockchain will for sure help and increase probably efficiency and margins in those three industries, and risk mitigating the next issue, if not a pandemic. That will those tools will be like probably keys to funnels the next issue, or if not to manage the current one. I think in terms of deep tech, to get back to your first question, deep tech and transportation, I think we're gonna see with the, there was a big fight between Airbus and Boeing between the point-to-point and the hub transportation, and by the retirement of the A380 recently, and together with the COVID issue, we're having a true understanding that Boeing basically won the point-to-point discussion, and I think we're going to see airline changing their models into a smaller, more quality-ish point-to-point travel with smaller, more efficient plane, maybe faster plane. I mean, there are a bunch of projects to have a supersonic back on the table, which are quite advanced. I mean, this is possible because, I mean, just simple math, it would be safer to have 50 or 100 people on the plane than 700. The same thing for airports. If it's point to point, if the guy lands in wherever the US and not the big hubs, it's going to be safer to land them in an airport with 5,000 people instead of 50. So that probably how it's going to be tough to just funnels 100% of the passengers like that. I think at the end of the day, we can have a good analogy on how deep tech and how the solution will impact our life. It's going to be quite similar to how the subprime crisis impacted the following years in the economy. The proportion of capital basically distributed will be lessened more and more, let's say even or fair, and when you see that all the shops in New York are closed, but there is $7 trillion in the economy, that can tell you that of course some deep tech solution will be available, but they will be available for like 0.01% of the travelers or of the user of a hospitable solution or whatever in those industries. So I think we're going to see some very, very fun stuff, but very, very expensive stuff coming probably soon for a very, very tiny portion of the population. Now the rest, I don't know how we're going to tell.
So Jean, I apologize. We're coming up to the lightning round. We're coming to the top of the hour. So I want to make sure everyone else has a chance to chime in here. So everyone, I want to come to each and every one of you to get your areas of opportunities that the audience should be paying attention to, and any closing thoughts along with where everyone can find you online. So Telly, let's start with you. What are opportunity areas that people should be paying attention to quickly? And then also any closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation?
Okay, so bad for the lightning round. Anyway, just to echo my colleague's sentiments, when it comes to deep tech definitely is what is required and needed to transform. We talked about infrastructure, their physical infrastructure, but no one has been talking about the digital, and specifically the digital financial market infrastructure. That's fundamentally missing. It's highly fragmented. So like a lot of focus has been recently on blockchain, and then as a result of blockchain, DeFi, decentralized finance. That's just but a small component. Like you mentioned before, there's the need for data. You can't solve a problem if you can't measure it, So there's the need for data and capturing different data points. This is where AI comes in a big way. There's so many different type of applications for AI. If I start with travel requires, especially now post-COVID world, we now have to do advanced passenger lists, even beyond what happened beyond 9/11. You have to submit your health status and stuff like that. You're going to need data and AI to be able to manage that process, but also to simplify the user experience. Because what we don't want to have is to have onerous documents and filling out all this stuff. That world is like past. At this point in time, people are going to move to where they can have a seamless experience. It has to be done in seconds. You can't do it without deep tech. Yeah. So that's on travel. On the hospitality side, it's very similar. You still need these solutions. Hey, we can now even use ID verification services virtually to onboard a person. KYC, know your customer. Nobody needs all that nonsense documentation. You just need deep tech to be able
decentralized
to do that.
identity.
Yeah.
Just a quick decentralized identity. Yep. So real quick, any other closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you, Telly? We're coming out to the top of the hour, so I want to make sure I get everyone. So I apologize for cutting you off, but any other closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you online as well?
Closing thoughts. Well, we have been focused on building out this digital financial market infrastructure. We have a number of solutions in the area of ID verification, as well as in the area of alternative investments. We actually have designed a program, postgraduate certification program in the area of digital financial market infrastructure, which cuts across all industries. And we even have a specific specialization in DFMI in climate finance. You can find our new school on altschool.co. You can find me on LinkedIn for more information. And we also just announced, we're about to announce a new practitioner certificate. So not only did we partner with Middlesex University for the postgraduate academic certification program, but we also have a new practitioner certificate. It cuts across all the different asset classes. Become a DFMI chartered practitioner. So that's my little tidbit.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Telly. Julio, to you, real quick closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you online? Again, we're reaching the top of the hour, so I want to make sure everyone gets their stuff as well. Thank you, Telly. Julio, to you. Quick closing thoughts, where can everyone find you?
Thank you. Well, not a whole lot of very wonderful closing thoughts from me. I just think that the pandemic, hey, the airlines got rid of the change fees, right? We all hated the change fees. Now they don't have any more change fees. I think that's at least a good thing that has come out of this. Maybe they'll be more efficient, and maybe they'll try to treat their customers better.
Coming back.
Love the idea. There may be some sort of a frequent flyer opportunity now for, in some way connected to health. I don't know. Brand new world out there. We hope we're going to go back to the way things were. Stay tuned. But in the meantime, if you have good ideas or of good investments, please write me or reach us at New York Bay Capital. The easiest way, I think, is through the web. Our website is NYBAY Capital. It's over there. .com. Just all those letters together. .com. If you look on our website, then you'll find a way to get a hold of us. There's several partners. We're all on LinkedIn. Not difficult to get a hold of us, and not difficult to get your call returned. Even though we're not Goldman.
No worries, and thank you so much, Julio.
Thank you.
Jean, to you, super quick closing thoughts. Alex and Neil, you're going to close this out. So, Jean, quick closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you online?
LinkedIn. I'll put my email. Happy to chat with anyone. Closing thoughts. Stay put. I think, yes, we need to evolve. We need to change our habits, risk mitigate, analyze more data, clean more data. innovate in transportation in more sanitized way of getting people into hotels and other hospitable place. But at the end of the day, I think we need to get back to our senses and understand that actually 2020 was not such a deadly year as in most countries impacted by the virus, and hopefully we will get back out of that with interesting things. But area we're really gonna innovate on that matter is gonna be biotech, not really transportation. I don't think so. A little bit, but not groundbreaking.
Wonderful. Thank you. Alex, to you, quick closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you online? And then Neil, again, you're going to close us out.
Sure. I think the biggest area of opportunity right now is evening the playing field between the people who create our digital spaces and our travel plans and our ways of getting around the world, and us as individuals. So using these types of technologies like blockchain, AI, to actually give us the power to really see into the digital infrastructure and put us on an even playing field where we've been very, very uneven for the last kind of 10 plus years. That's really where this pandemic has shown that we need a revolution in consumer facing technology and consumer facing behavior, from the financial side, from the travel side, from the data side. There's a lot of pieces that need to be built in there, and some of this deep technology is really where it goes. So we're investing. We're also fundraising. You can reach us at bicameralventures.com. You can reach me personally on LinkedIn or Twitter at AlexM_bicameral. And as Kyle teased, we're writing a book on some of this stuff called The Lizard and the Machine: Scaling Humanity in a Machine Speed World at lizardandmachine.com. The intro part is there. So I'd love talking about this stuff. Love to catch up with anybody who's looking at this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alex. Neil, close us out. And also, I would ask, drop where can everyone find your program as well? I know you've been investing in companies. So closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you online?
Sure. I mean, I think that there is a lot of opportunity today. I mean, specifically, as I mentioned in our portfolio, we've seen there's a few good examples I have to mention. There's a super high-end Airbnb. They rent out $10 to $20 million villas around the world. Their Q3 is looking like it's going to be much better than last year. Whereas, obviously Q2 was pretty bad, but they're rebounding really quickly. Their clientele travels, mostly by private jet. So they're able to avoid a lot of issues around airports and the pandemic in general. On the other hand, we have a bus technology company, which is rebounding as well and going through a merger. So then we have a food tech company, which has totally pivoted its business model from office customers to B2B, B2C. And they're actually going to beat their projections for the year with their new business model. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to, at least what we're seeing, get into bridge rounds in some of these companies who are pivoting successfully, but they need a little capital just to get to their next Series A or Series B raise. So financially, I think that's an opportunity that we've been very excited about. And you can find me at neil@kiwitech.com or LinkedIn.
Wonderful. And all, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and insights. As we talked about, there's so much opportunity in these three areas, from the down, deep infrastructure level, all the way up through the consumer being us, and how we look at the future of these industries, whether that be in travel and hospitality, or again, transportation as well. You have some of the best and the brightest here who have shared their thoughts and insights. Definitely reach out, and we're all available on social media 24/7, 365. To Alex's point, we're all digital all the time now, and we'd love to continue the conversation. So thank you all very much for sharing your thoughts and insights. And to you, our audience, if you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. And again, please do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today, or if you'd like to connect with any of us here on the panel. We'd be happy to continue the conversation. Also, a big thank you to Elena, Maria, and to the entire LA Token team for making VCTV possible every single day. And as I mentioned, today we have a double episode. We're going to take a short little break. We'll be back here just shortly to talk about impact investing and sustainability. What is happening in these industries? Where are things going? And what does the future look like? Again, panelists, thank you all so very much for your time and insights. We'll see you again soon. We'll be back with all of you, our audience, here shortly. Take care, everybody.